Hello guys and welcome back. Today we're going to take a look at a new release from one of my favorite micro brands, Zelos. Their upcoming release of the Titanium Hammerhead 3 will drop on the 8th of June this year. So in today's video we're going to take a closer look at the very beautiful and in my humble opinion best colorway, the Crimson Red Hammered Dial. Now, as far as I know, the upcoming Hammerhead release will basically feature very similar specifications as the previous stainless steel models. They will have the same case size, same movement inside, and the same application of Lume. So if you already own one, you know what to expect. But there are some major and minor differences as well. The biggest one is the material in use. Zelos decided to use grade 2 titanium for the case and the bracelet this time. They did that already in the past with the Swordfish and the Aurora line. Titanium is known to be a little bit lighter than stainless steel and have a slightly different appearance and feel to it. Usually it's softer than stainless steel and therefore scratches more easily. To prevent that from happening, Zelos used a 1200 Vickers hardness coating on the case and bracelet, so you don't have to worry about scratches at all. In my opinion, titanium has more of a matte and lackluster finish to it compared to its stainless steel counterpart. I actually handled all three iterations of the Hammerhead 3, the stainless steel with the orange sunburst dial, then the bronze with the teal dial, and now this titanium version with the red dial. And I have to admit that I like this iteration the best because it is very comfortable to wear due to its weight. Feel free to watch my other videos on the previous versions, I will link them down below. But don't worry, I will go over the dimensions and specifications in this video as well. But first, let's take a quick look at the packaging. If you weren't aware already, the newest Zelos watches come in this cool blue travel roll. They used to come in these metal cases, but Elshan, the owner of Zelos, mentioned that some watches got damaged during transit, so they came up with this watch roll as a solution for that. I am personally a big fan of that. It's a cool way to display your watches at home or take it with you when you travel. Now, as promised, let's have a closer look at the specs and dimensions of the watch. The Hammerhead has a case diameter of 41.1 mm when measured from 3 to 9. However, the more important measurement is the bezel diameter, and that is exactly 40 mm. So as you can see, the watch will wear smaller than the written dimensions suggest. The overall thickness is 14.3 mm, that is with the domed crystal included. Without the crystal we are looking at roughly 13 mm. The big lumed screw-down crown measures 6.9 mm. Nice. The lug-to-lug length is 49 mm, however the end links protrude a tiny bit, which makes the effective lug-to-lug length 52.5 mm. By the way, that is exactly the same lug-to-lug length as on the latest Mako drop, just wanted to mention that. The lug width is 22 mm, the bracelet tapers down slightly to 20 mm and goes back up to 21 mm at the clasp. Speaking of bracelet and clasp, check out this beautiful trapezoid design and the way that the links fold. Let's have a closer look at the clasp. From my understanding, it's the same clasp as they used on the black tip GMT. It's really well made and it features a Zelos logo on top. It goes very well with the watch and the bracelet design in my opinion. We have a milled scissor here and a very practical on-the-fly adjustment system as well. Everything feels super satisfying here. I love the way that the clasp operates. The links are secured with, in my opinion, a bit too tiny screws. But they do get the job done and it was really easy to resize the bracelet for me. Speaking of, I removed 4 links to fit my average sized 7-inch wrist. A big factor when it comes to titanium watches is the weight. Sized to my wrist, this watch weighs 154 grams. If we add the 4 links I've removed, we're looking at 167 grams. Which is still a lot for a titanium watch, but in comparison to the other Hammerheads, it's still fairly light. The watch head alone weighs 81 grams, compared to the bronze Hammerhead, which weighs 113 grams. Most of the weight comes from the bracelet, so if you want to reduce the weight, I suggest swapping the bracelet for rubber or a sailcloth strap. The case back design is done really well. I am a huge fan of the two polished hammerhead sharks swimming at the bottom of the ocean. The specs are written here as well, like the individual watch number or the 300 meters of water resistance. Let's have a closer look at the highlight of the watch. This is what Zelos calls a hammered dial, which fits the hammerhead line pretty well in my opinion. Check this one out, guys. Not only does the dial have this hammered texture, but it also has a fume effect. That means that it gets brighter the closer you get to the center of the dial. This one literally looks like an earthquake erupted in the depths of hell. We have a date window at the 6 o'clock position with a matching black date wheel, which goes really well with the dial color in my opinion. The chapter ring is held in white on all color variants, and on this particular version the second hand also features white accents. At first it felt kinda odd to have white on the second hand, but then I realized that literally every other color wouldn't have worked. Red would clash too much with the dial, black wouldn't be visible, so I'm not complaining. The rest of the hands are rather standard broad hands with a polished finish and are filled with tons of lume. Speaking of lume, if you know Zelos, you know that they aren't skimping when it comes to adding tons of layers of superluminova. We have a nice mix of blue BGW9 and green C3 superluminova. One thing that I noticed, the Zelos Z on the dial is lumed too. Apart from the Thresher line, I think that the Hammerhead features one of the strongest lumes in the Zelos lineup. Protecting the dial is a beautiful piece of domed sapphire crystal. It also has some clear AR coating on the underside, which helps a lot with the legibility. Like I mentioned before, the crystal size is rather small in relation to the case. Just wanted to make it clear for those of you who are hesitant of pulling the trigger because of this size. It really wears smaller than the dimensions suggest. We have a 120 click unidirectional bezel and a brushed ceramic bezel insert. As you saw earlier, it also features some applications of lume on the bezel. The bezel action is very solid and satisfying to turn. The alignment is also spot on. I noticed that it is easier to turn than on the bronze variant. The bezel on the bronze hammerhead has a high resistance and requires a lot of force to turn. This one, however, is a bit easier to rotate. The movement beating inside this stunner is a trusty Seiko NH35. We all know this movement at this point, so I'm not going to talk too much about it. I don't have a problem with the movement of choice, as it helps keeping the price low. And speaking of price, these watches will have a launch price of $429 US. In the unlikely event that they won't sell out, the price usually increases by $50 or $100 US after 3 or 4 weeks or so. Honestly, the best way of getting your hands on a Zelos is via their website. If you happen to live in the EU, like I do, there will be some taxes and custom duties that will be added on top of the price. Just keep that in mind. Alternatively, you can also check out serieswatches.com. They will get some watches as well. Let's get to the wrist shot. Here's how the watch looks like on my average size 7-inch wrist. I think it looks great on my wrist. And even if you have smaller wrists than I do, you'll be fine. Just keep the 52.5 lock-to-lock length in mind. It does have a lot of wrist presence, especially if you wear it on the bracelet. So here's how the watch looks like on the rubber strap. The bronze model is a bit top heavy, but this titanium version feels very comfortable on my wrist. So overall, I really like this watch. There are tons of things that I like about it. Obviously, the dial is one of them. The lume is a highlight as well. And generally speaking, Zelos always offers you great value for money. Do I have any cons? Things that could be improved? Well, there's just two minor things. Number one, I would have loved to have quick release spring bars, just like the latest Mako drop had. I just think it's so convenient, especially if you're someone who likes to swap your straps regularly. The second thing that bothers me a bit is the use of these tiny screws. They seem a bit small and unproportionate, but I am sure that they will hold very well. Yeah, but other than that, I think it's a stunning watch. You guys should definitely check out the other dials as well, but again, my personal favorite is this crimson red variant. But if vibrant colors are not your thing, maybe the chalk gray color might be for you. I personally also believe that this is going to be the sleeper pick. Keep in mind that Zelos watches tend to sell out really quickly, especially the more desired color variants, so if you have your eyes on one of these models, be quick, be fast, and good luck! So, I'm going to close out this video with a couple of outdoor shots. This way you can see the watch in all different lighting conditions. Anyways guys, this is already the end of the video. Please let me know what you think of this titanium hammerhead and in particular what you think of this dial color. Subscribe if you like this style of content. Thank you very much for watching and I'm going to see you in the next one. Cheers!